So I know it's been a while since I've made a video on the second channel. I've been pretty busy with the main channel this past month, but I wanted to make this video because this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. I just have been putting it off, and I didn't want to talk about it just because I kind of wanted to avoid politics. But I'm to the point now where I just don't care anymore. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. But I have to talk about this because it is so unbelievably insane. And it's the Epstein file situation. Like the Epstein files are so unbelievably crazy, and we don't see it talked about on the news. And I had to talk about it because it's mind blowing to me about what's happening right now. So let me give you a little bit of backstory about me and politics. Like, I'm a registered independent. I grew up in West Virginia, so I have a lot of like very conservative family members. When I go back home, it's nothing but MAGA signs and stuff all over the place. I went to visit my parents a few weeks back, and there was a truck I was following, and it said, "I voted for the felon," in big letters. So, I grew up in a very conservative area, and my high school, like, I graduated with like 73 students, and like 12 of them are dead due to like drugs and stuff. A lot of the kids I went to high school with were like very racist. It's like you get it. And then on the opposite side, I have my girlfriend and her family, and they're the complete opposite, very liberal. So I get hit with all sides of this. And I've always had the mindset of I like to look at both sides and then I form an opinion depending on what the topic is. So going into this last election, I didn't vote. I because I didn't know enough about either candidate, because my whole life I've been able to just scoot by without worrying about politics because I was so focused on growing my YouTube channel, and I had the mindset of like, no matter what president wins, I'm just going to have to adapt, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it wasn't until before this election where I started to like research the Epstein stuff. There was like a random YouTube video that popped up about the Epstein files, and I watched it because I'm interested in like the criminal videos that pop up on YouTube. I think like criminal investigation stuff is pretty interesting. So I saw an Epstein file video before the election, and I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. This conspiracy theory of like rich elite pedophiles, this sex trafficking ring. I was like, this is pretty crazy if it's true, and they think that Epstein didn't kill himself, and it was an interesting story. And then we get closer to the election, and Donald Trump and his whole cabinet is running on, hey, we're going to release the Epstein files, we're going to clean the swamp. I was like, okay, I can get on board with that. That sounds like it's pretty, I want to see what happens with this Epstein file release. And then as we got into 2025, after Trump got elected, they had the phase one binder release of the Epstein files. And then we find out that like all the information that they released in phase one was stuff that we already knew prior. So they didn't give us any new information. So that was my first red flag, right? And then as the year progresses, they start to switch the narrative from we're going to release the Epstein files to, oh, suddenly it's now a Democrat hoax.
Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
And I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, they ran on the idea of releasing the files, and now they're backtracking and they're saying it's a hoax made up by the Democrats. And I was like, that just doesn't add up. And then they never released phase two. And then outrage got to the point where Congress and the Senate had to vote on this. And it was unanimous. Like, Congress voted it through. There was only one person that opposed it. And then the Senate immediately passed it. And then Donald Trump had the option of, do I A, vote it through and then claim that I'm the most transparent president, or B, if he tries to veto it, it was a veto-proof majority, so it was gonna go through regardless. So, of course, Donald Trump's going to sign this and pass it through, and then they claim, "Oh, this is the most transparent presidency ever because Donald Trump signed this, and we wouldn't have the files if it wasn't for Donald Trump." And this whole time, up until that point last year, Donald Trump kept saying, "Oh, we gotta ignore the files. It's a hoax. It's not important. We need to push past this." And then come December, when they were supposed to release the files, they didn't. They released like a fraction of them and they were overly redacted. So we had to wait until January to get more files. And then when January rolls around, we still don't get the full files. And this latest batch came out a couple weeks ago now. The stuff that's in these files is so disturbing and disgusting. Like, we're talking cannibalism, children were being eaten, the sex crimes. Like, just look it up. The stuff that's in these files is so unbelievably heinous and disgusting, and like the rich and powerful people are getting away with this right in front of our eyes. It is I I can't believe we're at this point.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else, really. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
And then yesterday, as of recording this video, Pam Bondi just gave her testimony in front of Congress, and she deflected every single question about the Epstein files. Every single question.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce? Was he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes,
You're
this
from
is
a tiny,
pathetic. This
beautiful
is
state.
pathetic, Mr.
Committee will
Chair.
be in order.
I am not asking trick questions here.
You
The
got your
American
5
people
minutes.
have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior officials in the Trump administration.
She's the head of the Department of Justice. She knows all these answers. Her and the FBI have claimed that there's nobody. It was just Epstein. He was the only one. But the files prove that there were many, 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 many other rich and powerful people that were involved in this, and not a single person is being held accountable. And they are actively covering up the names. With this latest release of these Epstein files, they have been caught covering up Donald Trump's name. They've been caught removing files that mention Donald Trump after the fact. Like, once the public was going through these files, they found Trump's name all over the place. The DOJ has been taking all of that stuff down anywhere that mentions Trump in a bad light at all. And the news has not been talking about this story. We have children being eaten and murdered and stuff by these rich elite. And these news outlets that are owned by the same rich elite are not covering these stories whatsoever. Not a peep. But then magically the other day, there was this file that popped up, and it says that Donald Trump called the police on Epstein, after Epstein was, being investigated criminally. So Donald Trump called the police and was like, "Oh, you gotta, you gotta go after Epstein. He's evil," or Ghislaine Maxwell's evil. And everywhere, all these news websites were posting about this, saying Trump called the police on Epstein. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, Forbes, you name it. Like TMZ, all these places were talking about how Donald Trump called the police, and all these right-wing grifters, they got the phase 1 binders. They didn't say a peep about this latest batch of files. But as soon as this one little email comes out saying Donald Trump called the police, everybody was like, "See, Donald Trump's innocent." It makes no sense. And if you look at the files, there are many files that show that Donald Trump was still in contact with Jeffrey Epstein in some way, shape, or form after that phone call. And not only that, Donald Trump has been caught lying about these files a number of different times. He said he was never on the airplane. Well, we found out he rode the airplane like 8 times after that fact. He said he cut ties with him with Mar-a-Lago. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. That ended up not being true either. Like, there's emails showing that Epstein went to Mar-a-Lago after Trump claims that he kicked him out. So that doesn't make sense. Trump claims that he didn't send Epstein the birthday card. Well, we found out that that's not true either. He did, in fact, send him the birthday card. So there's all these instances of Donald Trump being involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and we're just going to ignore that? It's nuts. And I've seen every excuse under the sun. Every excuse. Like, why didn't Joe Biden talk about it? Why didn't Joe Biden release the stuff? If Trump was, doing some crimes, they would have released it when Joe Biden was in office. Joe Biden and the Democrats are also in these files. Well, not Joe Biden himself, but like the Democrats, like top donors for the Democrats are also in these files. Joe Biden's not going to, break the dam open and release this crazy shitstorm of political craziness if he didn't have to. He's also protecting these people. This whole thing goes back to the 90s with Bill Clinton in that era. And which leads me to the next excuse of, what about Bill Clinton? I see that all the time. Anytime somebody mentions Trump, who's been mentioned in these files 38,000 plus times, and in the unredacted version, he's mentioned over 1 million times, we're still like, what about Bill Clinton? No one gives a shit about Bill Clinton. Nobody. No, especially like people my age that like were children when Bill Clinton was in office. Nobody cares about Bill Clinton. But what's crazy is Bill Clinton got impeached over lying about a blowjob. But the shit that's in these files about Donald Trump, and he just gets to shrug it off and be like, "Ugh, it's a hoax. It's a hoax, guys." And then one of the counter arguments that I've seen about the basically Donald Trump's name mentioned at all in the Epstein files is there's this little tiny snippet in the accusations portion. It says, complainant was spoken to and deemed not credible. Additional research showed 3 separate incidents involving police, which requested in mandatory psychiatric evaluations. So the argument that people have is, oh, this one person was crazy. We can't listen to any of the accusations. There's also many other files of sworn testimonies and stuff of people accusing Trump, but we can't listen to any of the Epstein files because one person that the FBI deemed was uncredible, the same FBI that deemed that none of this even existed in the first place, says that this person's crazy and we shouldn't listen to them. And then MAGA's going around saying, well, you can't listen to any of the allegations because this one person that the FBI said isn't credible, well, we can't listen to them. So all the allegations are just null and void. If society is going to collapse if we release all these files, then society deserves to collapse. We, the people, deserve to know who these people are. These people are running our governments. They are making choices like we have to live off of. They make the rules. They make the laws. These people that are sex traffickers, cannibals, murderers, these people that are doing the worst crimes imaginable are making the laws that the rest of us have to follow. And if we don't follow these laws, like if I didn't pay my taxes, I would face a pretty big fine. Like if we do something small, we can face jail time, depending on the crime. These people can murder children and brush it under the rug and nobody cares. If you just look up how many people are involved with Epstein that have ties to Donald Trump. It is crazy. There's like 5 or 6 people in Donald Trump's close inner circle that have ties with Jeffrey Epstein, that have been caught lying about Jeffrey Epstein, and nobody cares. Like if you look around the world, kings and queens and like members of government all over are quitting and resigning or being fired because their name is just mentioned in these files. And they're opening up investigations. The police are getting involved in all these people just because their names are mentioned in the files. Donald Trump is mentioned 1 million times in the files. Look at some of the accusations. And then, like, people have accused Donald Trump of murder. They've accused him of rape. They've accused him of all these heinous things. And the defense for that is, oh, just because you're mentioned in the files, accusations, you can't pay attention to the accusations. Anybody could make an accusation. There's accusations from back in the 90s about Donald Trump related to this stuff. So somebody, this Democrat hoax, somebody back in the 90s and early 2000s were planting the seeds so that if this ever came out, we could get Donald. It's so ridiculous. It's so unbelievably ridiculous. It's like, why don't we hold these people accountable? If okay, so here's an example. When I was in high school, one of the track and field coaches got fired because he messaged a student about a track meet that was happening over the weekend. He messaged them on Facebook, and the parent complained that the coach was messaging their daughter on Facebook, and that was inappropriate. So he got fired. The school deemed that that was inappropriate. Okay, so Donald Trump's accused of all this stuff. He has all these members of his cabinet that are also in the files for different reasons. They were hanging out with the man. There's no way that they didn't know what was going on. Even in this police report that Donald Trump called the police and like tried to turn in Jeffrey, he admits in that everybody knew what was happening. And he didn't call the police sooner. He waited until after he was being investigated. He didn't try to call the police and be like, hey guys, this whole thing's going down. No, I think Donald Trump, there's either two options. He either is a pedophile himself or he's protecting all of his pedophile friends, both of which are pretty freaking bad, right? There's no way around it. There is no way around it. Pam Bondi just testified and ignored every single question. Like, why were all these people redacted? Why are still, like, when Congress goes and looks at these files, they are still redacted, even though they're not supposed to be, because the FBI redacted them prior to the DOJ getting them. So there's like multiple layers of the government covering this up, and they've been caught lying under oath about this. They say, oh, there's no evidence of anybody other than Epstein, and they've been proven wrong. If there's anything that we as a society need to be up in arms about, it's the fact that our government is being ran by child murderer, rapist, cannibals. It's like, what are we doing? Why do I have to make this video? Why do I have to talk about this? Any normal society would have these people, they would physically remove them. I don't know. It's crazy. If you haven't looked up the Epstein Files, because like I can't get my family to look them up. I've tried. Like, if you have somebody that's as far gone, like into the MAGA world, that will defend Donald Trump no matter what, it's because they aren't seeing this in the news. I've looked at like my family members' like feeds of what they follow. They don't get these news stories. They don't. I've gone to the websites that like my family members look at, and like the only story that I saw about the Epstein Files was somebody reported on Grok from Twitter. They asked Grok, hey, is Donald Trump guilty? And Grok said no, and that was the whole headline. So that's the kind of stuff that they see. They see this propaganda of, oh, it's just a hoax. Oh, it's nothing to worry about. And this is coming from a place where I had no political affiliation. I didn't care about Democrats or Republicans. I was an independent. I went into this, rooting for Trump to release these files. And then as more and more evidence comes out that just contradicts everything that they say, it's like, how many dots are going to be right in front of your face before you start to connect them? I've already connected the dots. I can see the dots. And when they say something and it contradicts something else, and that happens like 6 or 7 times, and then the actual files prove something completely different from what they're saying, and we didn't even get these files until all of Congress voted for it, and then the Senate also voted for it, like they would still have this covered up. If it wasn't for Congress and people trying to push this matter, we wouldn't know as much as we know today. And people are still like combing through these files, and they're finding some awful stuff. So I don't know, guys. I just had to rant about this because it's the most insane thing I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Like, there was the Watergate scandal, there was Bill Clinton, And this is on a completely different level. A completely different level. This makes the Watergate look like a speeding ticket. And another thing that pisses me off and people keep falling for is that they keep saying, oh, this is a distraction. Oh, the Democrats are just trying to talk about this instead of all of Donald Trump's accomplishments. Like Pam Bondi in her testimony yesterday brought up the Dow Jones and was like, why aren't we talking about the stock market? It's doing better than ever under Donald Trump. And you guys want to talk about this child sex ring.
Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop caring about this billionaire sex ring so that I can take a minute to reflect on how good the stock market is doing, where these same billionaires are the ones that are making money off the stock market. Hey guys, stop caring about the billionaires having sex with kids and care about the billionaires making all this money. Like, what? What? But on the bright side, it does seem like more and more people are starting to pay attention to this story, with Pam Bondi freaking out yesterday and not talking and revealing any answers about the Epstein stuff. That's put even more eyes onto this situation. So if you've not researched the Epstein Files, this is no longer a conspiracy theory. This is fact. This is out there. Go research it. It is important. Please. Please. Especially if you are like hardcore MAGA, you're up Trump's butt. If you have family members that are also the same way, it's probably because they haven't researched this. They don't see it in the news. Show them. We can't stand for this. We cannot have pedophiles and murderers and cannibals dictating how we, the normal people, live our lives. These billionaires that went to this island are the same ones that own all of the social media and the companies that we get our freaking products from. That's it. That's the rant. When more information comes out, I'm going to start talking about this more often, because I'm to the point where, like, I don't care if you disagree with me. This is fucking insane. So, goodbye.